Welcome everybody to the Sandy City Council meeting, and we've got an agenda here for, it includes us, kicking it all off with a swearing in new police officer. So why don't we go ahead and do that first, and after the swearing in, we'll do, okay, I'm sorry. I'm a little bit, yeah, I was, had a little bit of a family emergency there before I got here. So let's go ahead and start with the Pledge of Allegiance, and don't need it. All right, I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Officer Ferguson. We'll go ahead and do the swearing in, and then we'll have an opportunity for pictures with family or friends or all that.
Mayor, I'm happy to move this for you.
Okay. Hi, how are you? Nice to meet you. Okay, repeat after me. I, Jordan Ferguson, do solemnly swear
I, Jordan Ferguson, do solemnly swear
that I will support the Constitution of the United States
that I will support the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of the State of Oregon and the laws therefore,
and the Constitution of the State of Oregon and the laws therefore,
and I will faithfully, honestly, and impartially discharge the duties of a police officer
and I will faithfully, honestly, and impartially discharge the duties of a police officer
during my continuance therein to the best of my ability, so help me God.
during the continuance therein to the best of my ability, so help me God.
Very good. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Go ahead and do that. We understand.
Did we forget
Okay,
something?
one of you. Right.
I'll hold the baby up.
Hey, it's a family kiss. Yeah.
I think. Baby's not looking.
Congratulations.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
We can do it later if you want.
All right.
Congratulations.
Yeah, Mayor.
You're welcome to stay all night long.
You should make it mandatory.
Rotate departments, everyone's gonna come.
All right. So we'll go ahead and kind of just review the agenda. And the first, let's do roll call first. Kind of way out of whack here. Roll call.
Of course, Councilor Maiden.
Present.
Councilor Smallwood.
Here.
Councilor Sheldon.
Here.
Councilor Ramsayer.
Here.
Councilor Hanley.
Here.
Councilor Hokinson. Here. Mayor Walker.
Here. So we'll have a public comment period at first. And if any of you are here to talk about or testify on the later resolutions for public hearings regarding the system development charges or the hotel motel room tax, please, you'll have a chance to kind of testify separately then. But if you're not here for those particular hearings, we'd love to welcome you up for the public comments. After the public comments period, we'll have presentations or proclamations for Arbor Month. We'll have a review of the consent agenda and approval of that. And then we'll have the resolutions, like I said, for the public hearings, adopting revised water and wastewater SDCs and revised ordinance codes for the hotel motel room tax. Finally, we'll have a report from the city manager and an opportunity for committee council reports, and then finally staff, any staff updates. So are there any changes to the agenda? Hearing none, let's go ahead and get started. Is there anybody here for public comments that aren't related to the later hearings? Very good. Okay, are there anybody online?
We didn't have anyone sign up online by the deadline.
Okay, very good. At the,
Any responses?
the
There were,
Arbor Month proclamation. Is that up here? No?
Did I fail? I'm so
Yeah,
sorry,
okay, that's
Mayor.
okay, I've got it right here. Okay, so,
you.
whereas the state of Oregon recognizes the month of April as Arbor Month, and whereas trees reduce the erosion of our precious topsoil by wind and water, cutting heating and cooling costs, moderate the temperature and clean the air, produce oxygen and provide habitat for wildlife, and whereas trees in our city increase property values, enhance the economic vitality of business areas, beautify our community, and whereas trees, wherever they are planted, are a source of joy and spiritual renewal, and whereas the city of Sandy is recognized as a Tree City USA by the National Arbor Day Foundation and desires to expand its tree planting and stewardship practices, now therefore, I, Kathleen Walker, Mayor of the City of Sandy, do hereby proclaim April 2025 as Arbor Month in the city of Sandy, and urge all citizens to celebrate Arbor Month and support efforts to protect our trees and woodlands. And further, I urge all citizens to plant trees to gladden the heart and promote the well-being of this and future generations, dated this 7th day of April, 2025. We are having an Arbor Day celebration later on, or maybe you guys can just reference it.
I can do it in the city manager report.
Yeah,
Yep.
city manager's report. I forget which evening it's on at Sandy Bluff Park, I believe, right?
That's correct.
Yeah, okay, very good. Okay. The consent agenda, has everybody had a chance to review the meeting minutes? That's the only thing on there. I have a motion to approve the consent agenda.
I'll make a motion that we approve the consent agenda. I'll second it.
Motion was made by Councilor Sheldon and a second was received by Councilor Mayton to approve the consent agenda. All those in favor vote aye. Aye. Opposed? Nay. Motion passed. All right, the resolutions. The first one we're going to work on is the system development charges for water and wastewater. Can I just have a raise of hand if you're planning to testify at that hearing? 2, 3, 4. Okay, all right, very good. Okay, so I will go ahead and open the public hearing for the ordinance number 2025-12, amending Sandy, excuse me, resolution 2025-13, adopting revised water and wastewater system development charges rates at 608. Call for any abstentions? Nope. Hearing none? Are there any are there any conflicts of interest to declare? Hearing none? Let's have the staff report. Tyler?
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. So council will likely recall that the last council meeting, March 17th, the updated methodology for water and wastewater SDCs was reviewed and adopted. The original presentation was back in November. So that last meeting was just the adoption of those SDC methodology updates. And wanted to remind you all as well that council goals for the upcoming biennium 7.5.1 and 7.9.2 were in relation to revising and updating the methodology for both water and wastewater. So this endeavor is in alignment with the existing council goals. FCS Group was the consultant who worked on revising the methodology for water and wastewater SDCs. I don't want to I hadn't planned on getting too far into the weeds on the actual calculations since we handled that at the last meeting, but in short, FCS captured all of our anticipated capital improvement projects for water and wastewater infrastructure, included that in their calculations to generate 2 revised SDC numbers. For water, that maximum defensible SDC is $18,477. And for wastewater, the maximum defensible SDC is $14,952. During the discussion at the last council meeting, in regards to the methodology, there seemed to be some general consensus to bring forward a resolution to actually revise those SDCs to the maximum amount, given the unprecedented reinvestment that we have in our utility infrastructure currently. And so that is what staff has done. So we brought back this staff report and resolution this evening to implement a update to the water and wastewater SDCs to the full amount of the maximum defensible that's listed in the methodology. We've updated the table in the staff report to show where our current SDCs are, and then with this, assuming an implementation of the full amount that we're presenting this evening, where that would put us in relation to all the other cities in Clackamas County. I was able to, just earlier today, find when most of these cities updated their SDC methodologies previously. I didn't get a chance to update the table in the staff report, but I can certainly, if there's interest, run through those briefly as to when those were last revised. You can have a ballpark. I'm seeing some head nods, so I'll go ahead and do that. So starting with Canby, it looks like their water SDC methodology was last revised in 2023 and their wastewater in 2019. For Estacada, their water methodology was last updated in 2024, and wastewater, the facilities plan was last updated in 2021 with a comprehensive review of their SDCs in 2024. So I don't know if the actual methodology was re-revised in 2024, or if it was just the revised cost estimates related to the SDC methodology. Gladstone water SDC was methodology was last revised in 2017, as well as their wastewater. For City of Happy Valley, they don't operate their own water system. Sunrise Water is the jurisdiction that manages that, and the SDC methodology was last updated in 2018. I was not able to locate the Lake Oswego information in advance of this meeting. For City of Milwaukee, the wastewater methodology was last revised in 2022 and was not able to find the information on water, unfortunately. Malala water methodology 2016, wastewater in 2019. Oregon City water methodology was last revised in 2020. And then Wilsonville water SDC methodology was in 2018. I don't have a wastewater date on there, so not entirely comprehensive, but kind of a snapshot of certainly an influx in revising methodologies, in the last 5-6 years. And then most cities do have the practice of increasing the SDC annually based on some sort of cost estimate. Most frequently, that's the Engineering News Record 20-year average. Some of the same unit of measure that our methodology suggests that we use going forward. And so our plan would be, once we get these updated, to bring those revisions back annually to ensure that we don't lose ground on the SDC with construction cost increases. And with that, staff would recommend holding the public hearing this evening, of course, and then implementing revised water and wastewater SDC rates.
Thank you, Tyler. We now have some opportunities for public testimony. I just start off with each person providing testimony must provide their name and address for the record. If you do not wish to state your address publicly, you must provide it to the city recorder before you begin your testimony. This can be done in person or via email at recorder@ci.sandy.or.us. If you have documents that you wish to be considered by the council, they must be formally placed into the record of this hearing. To do that, either before or after you speak, email your materials to recorder@ci.sandy.or.us, and staff will make sure your evidence is properly processed. Please try to avoid repetition. If someone else has expressed the same thoughts, it is fine to simply state that you agree with the testimony of a previous speaker. To offer public testimony, for those joining us in person this evening, please raise your hand to indicate you would like to speak. If you're attending online, click the raise hand button and wait to be recognized. If you are attending via telephone, please dial *9 to raise your hand and wait to be recognized. I will call on each person when it is their turn to speak. Each speaker will receive up to 5 minutes to testify. The city recorder will let you know when you have 20 seconds remaining. So I will now call for testimony on the proposed resolutions. Is there anyone here tonight who would like to testify? Are these, I've got some folks here. Rob? Amen? Rob?
Yeah.
No, you're not going to testify. Okay. All right. Nolan Wagner?
Hi, my name is Nolan Wagner. I live in Damascus, Oregon. I am a home builder up here in the city of Sandy. And I've experienced some of these rising costs, and they're pretty unbearable. I'm curious if you guys actually have a plan moving forward with the wastewater treatment facility. I mean, I can speak on behalf of many builders that I'm in contact with on a daily basis, that as these fees go up, builders are gonna not continue building in the city of Sandy. And I just want to know if you guys consider that before raising these fees as much as you guys have. I mean, the increases are crazy. It's making it unaffordable to even build up here. And I understand the permits have been cheaper than most other cities, but the home values in Sandy aren't comparable to cities like Wilsonville, Lake Oswego, Happy Valley. And now your guys' permit costs are gonna be pretty close to the same as those other cities. That's it.
Chase Christian? Is Chase Christian here?
He said not.
Oh, I'm sorry. Tom Moore?
I gave my address, I think, you good with the address?
I believe you have it up there, ma'am.
Yes, I do. Huh?
Counselors, thanks for your time. My name's Tom Orth. And I live on Forster Road in Boring. I've developed 9 lots in a project named Tonight Rim, and it's right by the police station, which the crew does a great job of policing for me. With the middle housing zoning, we divided those lots into 18 lots. I've built on 8 of the lots, sold 1. The other 7 have gone into a rental pool because there was no sales. So now I have 10 lots extra on each of the units. By the way, the water and sewer bill is $72 a month with no consumption. They're vacant. That exceeds the gas and electricity bills combined. Now, if the just so you understand where I'm coming from, now if the proposed fees are implemented, my next action is going to be to the county tax assessor and appeal all my values on my lots by at least 23,000, because I won't be able to get 23,000 more for those lots if they were available on the market. And then once those assessments start coming out, it's going to affect all the rest of the assessments for lots and even vacant land in the county. So my next subject is, let's move to resolution 2024-11. I've got 10 lots sitting there in the project. I can't sell them. The market doesn't warrant building on them. I've paid my ERU once, and then this morning I paid it twice to extend my sewer lateral fees to make sure they're available. Now, there's no more options available for me. The limit is 2. So if you enact this resolution and building dies off, let's say for 4 years or 5 years, now in the 3rd year, 2nd or 3rd year, I have no more ERUs. I have lots that don't have laterals that I can hook up to. Although I've already paid all my fees, park fees, all the other fees, as you know. So I've got, in 3 years, I've got 10 lots that I can't sell or build on because I don't have any sewer laterals. So I've been building for 43 years. I've been through 8 or 9 of these cycles. And I'm fearful for what these fees will do to your staff. I think the people in your staff upstairs are great. I love working with them. They represent the city very well. And it pains me to see that the first thing to go when the applications aren't coming in is the job is done. And I'd like to have you guys consider that too, as well as part of your decision. Thank you for your time.
Needs to work. Is there anybody out there that we missed?
So for a long visit,
Okay, that's fine. If that has your address on it, you can get that.
Yeah, I can.
Yeah.
I don't know if this address works for you, but I forget. First of all, thank you for your time. My name is Spencer McCoy and I live in Brightwood now. But a few years ago, my wife and I were looking for a home in Sandy since she grew up here. And she urged me to speak on our behalf. This little letter we wrote together. Tonight, I urge you to reconsider the proposed 41% increase in the SDCs. We believe this will further worsen the housing affordability problems here in Sandy, especially for those connected closely with the community. Long story short, my wife grew up here and she had aspirations of us buying a home in Sandy a few years ago. However, once we factored in mortgage payment alongside taxes and steep utility costs, like budgeting $400 a month just for water here, we realized it didn't add up and we had to buy elsewhere. It was disheartening. We believe these new SDC rates will make home ownership even more unattainable for locals with deep Sandy ties. Instead, we urge the city to partner with developers to help solve Sandy's housing affordability problems. Thank you.
I didn't sign in, but would like to step up top a little bit.
Okay, come on up. Is your name and your address?
My name's Jason Schuler. I currently live in Gresham, but I'm a business owner here in Sandy since 2007. I've been involved in new construction land development my whole career, over 35 years, and probably have more experience than 99.9% of all the real estate brokers in the community as far as new construction. And I, as well, I've been in the ups and downs of new construction and the cycle of the business. And right now, we're currently dealing with prices that are not selling. The economy is as such, the interest rates are, and we're reducing prices. And so raising these fees, again, it's adding on. Not only are these guys that are builders, we're not making profits on the projects. We're actually, breaking even and working for free. That's what's going on right now currently. We have houses that are sitting on the market that's, it's costing them dearly in interest. So that is, we're putting holds on, the builds right now. We're not starting new starts as we would be in normal market conditions. And so there's definitely on a downward trend. So it feels like, and maybe you guys can be a little more transparent. I mean, I understand we're on the gun with the sewer, but it feels like from a development side that you guys are trying to slow the growth here in the city. And if that's the case, then I think that let us know that, because at this point, I mean, I'm a landowner of 10 acres off of Kelso that's supposed to be developed sometime in the near future. But the way this direction, it could be 10 years, right? And so I know there's other developers here that have projects that are going on. They're starting developments, and now all of a sudden they made a decision before this came out. Another $22,000 or $23,000 add on to permit fees. It makes it totally unaffordable. We can't add it on to the sales price because it's not happening. It's not working. The interest rates are not going down. Buyers are not buying right now. It's slow. It really is truly slow. So it makes it super unaffordable. So like Tom was talking about is if we just stop building, the 22,000 isn't going to matter because nobody's building. We're not adding on to, that it's not a benefit. So it's a lose-lose for everybody. There's got to be a better solution. Pass a bond, do something else to cover the cost. What about the developers, in the last 20 or 25 years, we paid these fees to cover this. Now we're trying to come up with a Band-Aid that is putting everybody else in this situation, right? So think about, there's got to be a better solution than the last minute, add $23,000 to the cost of, projects that we're working on right now. It's not working. And so it is going to slow down. It already is slowed down. So please take that in consideration. I've sold thousands of new construction homes in my career, and I've been through the cycles. I understand it. I understand it from a builder developer standpoint, and I understand from your guys' standpoint as well, but it's tough. Like if we don't all work together and try to be a little bit mindful of everything, if we're trying to, make the city grow and flourish, like Tom said, it's like if nobody builds and we're not spending the money, there's people that are losing jobs. We're not creating anything out of it. So please consider all that. Thank you for your time.
Anything else out there? Thank you for your thoughts.
Mayor, I'll just take a look online
Okay.
for any. So, no, Mayor, I don't see any raised hands on Zoom.
Here we, let's call for a staff recap and recommendations, Tyler.
Yes, so as I previously mentioned, the SDC methodology for water and wastewater was revised at the last council meeting. The direction that staff received was to bring back a proposal to increase the SDCs in accordance with what the methodology supported. And as such, you've held a public hearing. Staff recommends having discussion around that feedback. But ultimately approving an increase to the water and wastewater SDCs to help offset the future project costs that we're facing.
Okay, very good. May I have a motion to close the public hearing?
Make a motion, we close the public hearing.
I have a motion from Counselor Sheldon, a second from Counselor Wilkinson to close the public hearing. All those in favor, vote aye. Opposed, nay? Motion passed. Discussion.
Tyler, when we talked about this previously, I had asked for like a generalized account for how much money annually this would bring in toward those projects.
Yeah, so
Have those?
it's very difficult to answer from an annual perspective because of the ebbs and flows of the real estate, cycle. But our best estimates right now over the next 20 years, increasing water SDCs to the proposed rate this evening would generate somewhere around 52 million in additional SDC revenue and an additional 25 million in SDC revenue over on the wastewater side of things. So
Over what?
a 20-year period. So I mean, you can divide that by 20 and get a rough average annual amount. That's certainly gonna, some years are gonna be higher than others, just based on the way development happens. And if it's an apartment and you get all those online at one time versus, single family home development, that's gonna be a little bit slower to roll in, but somewhere in the 52 million for water and 25 million for wastewater.
Thank you.
Others?
Yeah, I'll speak. I appreciate the testimony. I grew up son of a contractor. I've lived through many of these cycles as well. Obviously I chose to go a different direction because ultimately I don't think my stomach could handle it. And I feel for those of you who are struggling with the economy right now. We're in a bad spot for sure. I want to say a couple things about SDCs, and my counselors have heard it many times, but I'll say it just in case it's relevant. Hopefully it's relevant for you and you understand where I'm coming from. An SDC that's charged for these new constructions can't be used. It's not used to pay down infrastructure that's used for existing already here customers. It doesn't pay down the rates against the customers that are already here. It's by law, it's only useful to pay for excess capacity that was already paid for in the existing system, or the capacity needed in future upgrades to support that building that's coming online. There's no room to pad it or to add anything else into there. It's only used for that. If we don't collect that money, so a new house, new apartment, new project comes on, it's going to use up a portion of the infrastructure. We do not collect adequate money, the full amount of what it really costs to support that, as this methodology shows, then that turns into a higher rate for every person on the system. And so I appreciate the ask, but I want everyone to understand that if that rate is not at the maximum, we're shifting that cost onto ratepayers from now until the future. So for me, and the thing with excess capacity, we know we don't have excess capacity on the wastewater system right now. That's why we're in that moratorium. Is the city interested in slowing growth? Even if individually we are, by law, we can't, right? there's so many laws about promoting housing, but we are in a complete bind with our limited infrastructure right now. And so we are stuck between a terrible rock and a hard spot on this one. And so for me, I am absolutely in favor of the full amounts for both these because they're just not optional. There's not wiggle room on them.
I do want to say one thing though to what you said,
Please.
and that is that the rate models that we're looking at for residents, for wastewater and water,
Mhm.
those are based on a certain amount of growth. If we don't get that growth,
Then they go up even.
those rate models increase. So there's a balance here that we're not acknowledging, right? So if we make it unaffordable for development in Sandy, if we make it so that we have no new homes, no new commercial, then we don't have growth. And without growth, those rates are gonna go up exponentially. So it will fall 100% on the ratepayer if we don't find a balance point someplace. So what I feel that this council has done and looks to do is extremes. We want the highest of the high and we want this, but we're not factoring in how fragile this system is and that you have to have, there's some give and take in there to create a very good market where we're getting some growth. We're also collecting money, whether it be SDCs, in rates, so that we can pay for things. And we never talk about that balance.
Well, so the balance, there isn't a balance, it's just a trade-off. So it's not like everything works great if we get that halfway. The thing is, you shift the cost onto the ratepayer, one way or the other.
Immediately.
Anything we don't cover shifts the cost. And if that's fair, so if you're gonna argue that we need to give developers a break, then we're doing it at the expense of those homeowners that are gonna buy those places and pay an increased fee, and also the rest of us. If we adopted we're not gonna grow ever, then we don't need a lot of that new infrastructure. You wouldn't spend it, and the rates would flatten out.
We wouldn't even be able to charge the SDCs.
You wouldn't have
If
to.
we had no growth, the SDC would be zero.
It's
'Cause
only about
literally to
growth.
pay for the expanded capacity.
And I understand that, but we're under a
Just be
moratorium
clear.
where we have to grow.
But we have to be clear
We
with what
have
we're
to.
saying.
But there,
We have nothing right now with the moratorium.
If you look
We
at,
don't have the SDCs, we don't have
yes, we do.
the abilities to not for new growth, we don't. If they want to come pull a permit, we're in a moratorium, they can't pull a permit.
I think if you looked at the methodologies from 2 or 3 weeks ago when we met, and you look at the line item for how much money was allocated for wastewater for existing capacity in the system, it was a tiny little percentage because it's all for future growth. Water, we still have some, so there's a larger amount that's reimbursable. But in wastewater, it's all future.
And I know that and I understand that.
Unfortunately,
Yeah, please.
unfortunately, the only thing that can really save this is if there was a tranche of money coming, what we are being faced with are unfunded mandates. I mean, essentially, we are mandated by the DEQ and the EPA to meet a standard. Without funding that standard, and we can't afford it as a 13,000 population city. So the chance, what's that?
There's private funding out there.
So
We
hold
looked
on,
at-
okay, but my point to a little bit is this has been, I've been on council, I'm going on my 5th year now. And this was a topic before I came on council. And so like, this isn't new, and unfortunately, this is where we're at. And I mean, hope is not a strategy. I hope someday something comes and you know what, these fees are changeable. I mean, that's the reality. If all of a sudden we got a tranche of money from somewhere, these fees, we can come back and explore them, and I'm willing to do that.
Yeah.
But where we're at right now, this is where we're at, because we are, to Lori's point, I think I agree with what, I think there is a balance, but unfortunately, right now, that balance is so far outside for our citizens that live here that there's no way that scale, this just barely, I think, I don't even know if this equals it out. Because unfortunately, we didn't do as a city what we should have done 10, 15 years down the road.
You-
So we are all paying for that now. I, as a citizen, am paying for it, as someone that pays the water rates, and you guys as people that are business owners and developers. And I hate it, and it sucks, and I'm sorry, but I just don't know. Again, for 5 years, we've sat up here, we've debated it, we've went round and round, we've explored 4 or 5 different options that I can think of off the top of my head. And unfortunately, none of them are any more cost effective. And this is where we're at. And I mean, when I first came on, and I think I can speak for at least 3 of us that are up here. One was already here, and I don't know about Chris, but I think we all hoped for something better. But I think we're at that point now where we have a time frame that we have to meet in order to keep from making the EPA and the federal government unhappy and the state government unhappy. The regulations aren't going to change in this state. We've tried that angle. We've tried about everything there is. So this is where we're at. And that's why I think it has to be a yes.
And I'm just gonna remind folks, we can't take any more comment from the public because I apologize, but we'd glad to talk to you. You know, if folks want to talk after the meeting, which that would be that. But
Happy to also take an email if somebody
Right.
has a great idea. That was more than willing.
Yeah, and what I would say is that, you know, I've been around for a long time and you know, the challenge with system development charges are that the way they get developed is that you take the time and effort and money to do a big master plan. And then you figure out, you know, all the costs of what needs to be in that master plan for the future growth and the replacement of existing infrastructure. And then you estimate costs. And what we've seen, as you all know, are the costs going up around COVID and, you know, the supply chain and all those other issues. Those costs that I know have not dropped back from COVID for you all have also not dropped for the costs for the water and the wastewater infrastructure. And so we're looking at these costs of, you know, $100 million. So the challenge that I have here is that I have been going down to Salem, you know, quite a few times just since I've been sworn in to request extra funding grants. We have a $14 million request for funding. We may not get that, but you know, you cannot win if you do not play. We would like to get even more from the federal government, but we've been told that that's probably not going to happen with the existing situation that we have. So, you know, unfortunately, the feds used to come, you know, help out with a lot of past cities' infrastructure, and that's not there. I don't know anything about these private sectors that are going to come in and drop millions of dollars in our lap. If there's, you know, certainly send me an email about that, because that's not something that I'm aware of. But I do know that first of all, to your point, sir, unless you're looking for a new house, these system development charges will not affect all the 5,000 plus houses that we have in Sandy right now. You can buy any of those and these SDCs won't affect it. I am very mindful of the costs that these SDCs will raise housing prices, very concerned about it. And I'm also, the argument that I've been making to the legislatures is that, you know, if we have to use the utility rates and not the part of the SDCs to do this, it's kind of like a 3-legged stool. We need the grant money from the feds and the state, and we need SDCs, and we need the utility rates. And we can't make the utility rates for all the existing and possibly the new residents unaffordable, because that's, you know, because people will move. And so, like you said, we're between a rock and a hard place. I don't wish this on anybody. We built that, I remember Tom, the line out past down Bluff Road for the $11 million 12 years ago, maybe now, to get up to the Bull Run. That's our backup water source, desperately needed. We're still paying on that. And yet now, you know, we have to go extend the connection and pay huge amounts of money to get that connected. And the prices are just out of this world. I was going to ask you a little bit if you knew what the proposed SDCs were for Portland based on the new price tags on that. You don't have to, yeah.
I don't know that offhand. I do recall reading that they had set the water rates, annual increases of at least 8% that were adopted in like a 5-year schedule. So those are just automatic over the next several years, but I don't know what the SDC is offhand.
I'm also aware though that, and I'm a little bit confused about some of the comments about, I know that SDCs are paid with building permits, isn't that right?
at the
Correct.
time.
Right, and so they're not something that's due up front. And so if you've already paid them and haven't broken ground on, with a building permit, I'm a little bit confused about that because they're not due until the end. Now, I know that the fee in lieu of, I think half of that has to be paid up front, but that's the only one. And then I'm also a little bit confused about the assessed valuation appeals because it was a surprise to me to hear that the assessed valuation on new homes is not what they sold for brand new. It's, 10, I don't know, it's like half of that or something like that. I mean, it's quite a bit cheaper.
It's usually half.
It's what?
It's usually about half.
About half, yeah. So, and that was kind of a shock to me that, they're already, so the assessed valuation is already half. And had we, if we were getting a little bit more of that, that might help with the SDCs, but I get it. So I am just, very frustrated like you about the cost of these infrastructure projects. It feels like we should have been increasing these SDCs like every year over time and can't go back. And so, and I don't think we can really anticipate the kind of increases in cost that we've had, but we're trying to get every free dollar that's out there. And as soon as we do, we're going to continue to redo these calculations on this project to as soon as we get more free money or whatever, or we get costs that aren't as high as they were estimated, we're going to recalculate everything. But for now, we have to kind of get this money because we're actively borrowing, having, tens of millions of dollars loans that are going to be coming due, that are already due and are going to be coming due to pay for all this infrastructure. We've got the water stuff going, basically completed in the next 2.5 years. And then the wastewater, we're hoping, 5-6 years out. So I apologize. I'm sorry. I know it's hurt. It hurts a lot. It hurts everybody. And these water and sewer rates don't, that people are paying also hurt. So it's just kind of, it's not something that we're trying to ding anybody for. It's kind of either you put the cost in this column or you put the cost in that column, but it's not a matter of cutting the cost in half and saying we're going to make it reasonable for everybody because unfortunately we don't have that option.
Be ready for a motion?
No,
I've got a couple comments, actually.
Mhm.
You ready? So I'm probably in the middle here. Been on council 2 years, been a Sandy resident myself since 2005. I'm an advocate, a staunch advocate for encouraging growth in this community. I think it's the thing that we need the most is to bring more people to Sandy so that we can help pay for Sandy. That's the truth. It's not going to happen without affordable housing. My 4 daughters are all adults and moved out of this town because they couldn't afford it in Sandy. 2 have moved out of state. 1 lives in Portland, and 1 lives in the suburbs on the west side because they couldn't afford a house here in Sandy. I'm approaching retirement, considering leaving Sandy because I can't afford it in the current house I'm in if I stay there for 10 more years, if the rates stay the way they are, because I'm a Sandy resident. Say all that. Everything these folks told you before is all true. This isn't your problem. This is our problem. And it's a problem that we've had for a long time that nobody did anything about. So now here it sits for us to take care of. We've raised the rates. We've raised the rates so high, people are leaving Sandy. You heard somebody say they couldn't buy here because of our rates. They're too high. So you don't have rates to lean on anymore. What else do? You have this $200 million bucket. We were asked if we had a plan. Go back and look at city council notes for the last 5 years. There's a plan. There's a deep plan. Every dollar attributed to, every dollar vetted. We're trying to save as much money as we can through each step of that path. We have public meetings every month that talk about it. Go to the Public Works Department and ask. It's there. We have outside consultants working on it to try to save us money. But that's money we have to spend. So where's that money going to come from? We're begging legislation year after year to give us money. We're not getting it. It's only going to come from one place then. And that's from you, the developer, who has to help us build. Now, what's that going to do to us? It's going to raise our prices in Sandy. We know it. We've considered it. We've looked at it. We don't like it. It's not good. But what else can we do? We're waiting for somebody to wave a wand and tell us. It's just not there. And we've got smart people up on this council looking at it every day. What can we do? What can we do to reduce upfront costs for you? Well, we talked about it. It hasn't been decided yet, but I'm optimistic that we can create waivers. Maybe things even in our urban renewal development or just waivers for keeping pricing low. These aren't things we've decided yet. But these are things that I think that you should be bringing up, saying, hey, if we're gonna have to pay this rate to get in, can't you offer us some incentives when we're building our houses? So it's an opportunity to work collaboratively to create an incentive that might help you keep your upfront costs down. We can't shift the burden to the residents of Sandy anymore. Everyone that came up here and said that they built, none of them said they lived here. You can't shift your burden to the residents. It can't happen anymore. They can't afford it. The income here isn't high enough to support what we're proposing for rate increases anymore. It can't happen. I'd rather you not build. And with the moratorium, you can't build. So we're kind of stuck. And we are for the next 2 or 3 years. I get that. It's not a great place, but it's where we're at. We want to find something that leads to equity. Equity for the residents and equity for the builders. So that both of us are paying our fair share. What does that mean to me? We have to pay the bill for wastewater and fresh water. It can't go away. It is what it is. We have to pay that. Are there other areas that we could look at to save some money? I think so. I think we can look at parks. As much as it's not liked, I think we can look at parks. Parks is high. It's $12,000, but is parks as necessary as wastewater? I say no. I believe parks are needed. I believe parks are necessary in a community. But I don't believe parks are 12,000 necessary versus a wastewater treatment plant that doesn't exist. I'd rather take a couple thousand off of that and credit it towards the wastewater and water treatment myself. I think of options to do it. We can't mess with the wastewater and water SDC. It needs to be what's recommended. It's what works out to keep the actual cost down. If we don't charge you what we're proposing today, we then have to bill the residents more. And that can't happen. I just mentioned that 3 times. So we have to go with what's listed in the SDC. If we go with what's listed in the SDC, how do we save you money? I told you, I think we create incentives for you, but I also think we relook at some of the other SDCs. And I would point out parks as being one where there's an opportunity for a little bit of savings. I'm not talking about $10,000. I'm talking about $2,000 or $3,000. That might help alleviate a little bit. I am going to vote for this with a very, very stern beg of you to come back as builders and work with the city council to help create incentives for future builds on SDCs. I also will be an advocate to reduce the parks SDC, and I will bring it up every month to the city manager until it gets on the books for a vote. But with that being said, that's my comments.
Motion?
Well, hang on, because I'd like to. So that was something that we had discussed over the last few years, was that if we had to go high with our water and wastewater, that we would look at the full SDC package, that we would revisit parks. That's been on the docket for quite some time. And that we would revisit the transportation SDC to see where we could find some balance in those SDCs, recognizing that wastewater and water, which I agree with, we have to pay for those projects. But also recognizing what's the cost, Tyler, of a full permit package to build a house right now with SDCs with the proposed rates? What would be the total package? It's not including permitting.
Yeah, keep going with your comments and I'll get that answer for you. Give me just a second.
So to Chris's point, and I was gonna make the point tonight anyway. I want to vote for these SDCs. But not if we're talking about keeping parks at 12,000 and keeping transportation SDC high. If we're looking at possibly relieving some of those and decreasing those and revisiting those. That's my one caveat is if we're saying, if this council is saying that water and wastewater is important, and I 100% agree, it absolutely is. Well, we can't say that parks are also equally important. everything can't be equally important. If we're in a crisis with our water and wastewater, and we all recognize that we are, we're not in a crisis with parks. And I like parks. This is not a parks. This is literally like, let's find somewhere where we can work here a little bit. Instead of being so extreme, like I said before.
I'd like to make a motion.
I will just add one point before that. We are requesting support for our $14 million ask at the state. And we're talking to our stakeholders, which of course are you all here in this room, to help write a letter of support for that $14 million. If that helps, all that $14 million helps with the SDCs. Again, I can't take any comment, Tom, but I'm glad to talk to you after the meeting. But if you're so inclined to, we can kind of come up with a draft letter for folks that support it, but that all those kind of things, those requests will help both the utility rates and the SDCs in the future. So just thinking that. Go ahead, Don.
See, notwithstanding the other comments about looking at other SDCs in the future, this issue is about resolution 2025. So which is about these two SDCs. I move that we adopt resolution 2025-13.
I will second the motion.
I have a motion to adopt resolution.
Mayor, can I interject just
Yep, yep,
quickly to
yep.
answer Counselor Smallwood's question?
Okay.
So just looking at it, one of the most recent building permits that was paid, this is current SDC charges plus our building and planning fees, 34,000 and change. So with this increase, it would get you up to about 57,000 for the building permit. Of course, as you know, that doesn't include the fee in lieu of, which is charged on some properties, some others donate the land, so mixed bag there, but you'd be looking at about a $57,000 permit for the average.
So, yeah, doubling the current cost.
Apologies for interrupting. I just wanted to make sure I got that response
Thank you,
before you
John.
Thank you
call the
very
vote.
much. I have a motion from Counselor Hoganson and a second by Counselor Ramsayer to adopt resolution 2025-13. All those in favor, vote aye.
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 Opposed, vote nay.
Nay, with the caveat that because we are not looking at the SDC package in its entirety, recognizing that, yes, it's important to increase those wastewater and water SDCs. But because we're not looking at that package in its entirety,
Well,
and
that wasn't on the agenda. I mean, if that's
I
what
am
you wanted
saying,
tonight.
I
it should
am
have been on the
clarifying
agenda.
so that
I
it
get
can't be
it.
used against me
I
in
get it. You
social
voted
media
today.
down the road,
Yep.
like things have been in the past.
Yep.
I'm clarifying why I'm a no vote.
And I'm not saying that we can't do that, Maria. I'm just saying that if that was the condition in which you wanted to do something.
We have talked about that for the last 4 years, looking at
All
this as a
All right.
complete package.
Okay, motion passes. Thank you.
You want to take a short break before we come back, or?
Would that be helpful?
I don't know. I don't know if these guys are staying or need to.
Are you guys wanting to stay for the rest of the meeting or?
What are you talking about?
We're-
Take a 10-minute break and you can talk to them, and then they don't have to stay for the rest of the day.
Is that something that would be helpful? A 10-minute break so that you all can engage a little bit?
You can
Yeah.
just
We'll do that.
Victoria or
Yeah.
whatnot.
Thank you. I appreciate it. That was a good idea. Is there any, I don't see anybody else in the audience, is the, we have an opportunity to offer.
Just
public-
nobody.
Unless
Yeah.
you-
Nobody back.
Fine, I'm good, Heidi.
I don't mean to say that. I mean, who wants to testify on our amending our hotel motel room tax code? So, is there anybody online?
We do have some on.
Okay, very good. All right, the
So now we
opportunity,
went from the front to the back.
to offer, public testimony will occur at this point. I'm going to go ahead and open the public hearing for ordinance number 2025-12 and the time, at 7:10. And are there any abstentions to declare? Hearing none. Are there any conflicts of interest to declare?
No.
Hearing none. Can we have the staff report, Tyler?
Yeah, I'll just tee it up here for Tyler Wallace. This is his second time presenting to council. The first was on screen. He was at a conference, so this is the first time in the hot seat. Coliseum. But before you tonight, ordinance 2025-12, amending Sandy Municipal Code, Chapter 3 for transient lodging tax. Most of this is housekeeping, best practice model ordinance updates. But most importantly, and Tyler will go more into detail here, but most importantly, this is the first step in a larger process related to Council Goal 6.6, which is developing short-term rental regulations and pursuing flexibility in the usage of associated revenue. So before you tonight is just general updates and modifications that need to happen to make the ordinance more sound and ensure that all of those that should be paying lodging tax are in fact paying the lodging tax. And with that, I'll turn it over to Tyler to get a little more detailed and answer any questions you have.
Thank you, Tyler. So good evening, Mayor and Council. So Chapter 3.28 in Sandy's code lays out Sandy's hotel motel tax, and this tax code section was last revised in 1996. So as Tyler said, this is the first part of multiple times we'll be in front of you talking about this section of code. There are essentially 4 categories of changes that should be addressed in this code section, since it hasn't been touched in nearly 3 decades. The first section is tax collection and remittance. The second is tax rate. The third is regulatory requirements and enforcement. And the last will be housekeeping changes and updates. So staff are continuing to evaluate code changes that are more regulatory in nature around this code section, as well as looking at adjusting the tax rate. And so we're continuing to evaluate and discuss that, and we'll be bringing those 2 pieces before you at a future date. The ordinance before you this evening addresses tax collection and remittance, as well as housekeeping updates. So staff wanted to make sure that we address tax collection and remittance promptly to ensure the city is getting all the tax receipts that they should be getting. To be clear, this ordinance is not proposing a new tax. It's not roping in additional taxpayers into an existing tax or a tax rate change. This ordinance this evening is just about making sure the city collects taxes owed for the existing tax. And these proposed code changes in this ordinance are modeled after the model transient lodging tax code promulgated by the League of Oregon Cities. So a little bit more background. The city assesses a 3% transient lodging tax on rent for periods of 30 days or less. So this is a tax that has historically been applied primarily to hotels and motels. In recent years, short-term rentals have risen in popularity. So generally the short-term rental is like a house, a condo, or a dwelling unit, or anything that is rented for 30 days or less. Generally the term short-term, excuse me, I lost my place. So although short-term rentals are not explicitly named or discussed in the current code, rent for these types of stays is generally included because it is for 30 days or less. The proposed amendment adds a definition in the code for short-term rental to make it explicit that short-term rentals are subject to the transient lodging tax. So just restated, they were already subject. We're just making it explicit in code that they're subject. Many short-term rentals are listed for rent on travel booking platforms. I think we're all familiar with the names Expedia, Airbnb, VRBO, other businesses like that list short-term rentals and hotels. These travel platforms allow for travelers to search for accommodation options and make reservations online. So generally, these booking platforms collect rent and fees from a customer and then remit those rents to the owner of the property. Many taxing jurisdictions require that these platforms also collect lodging taxes at the time of booking and then remit those taxes to the taxing jurisdiction. For example, I think many of us have gone online and booked one of these rooms on one of these platforms, and then you go to check out and you see where it says rent, and then it says fees, and then it says taxes, and then it has your total. So the idea is that the taxes are collected there at the time when the rent is paid and then remitted directly to the taxing jurisdiction by that company, by that hosting platform like Expedia, Airbnb, VRBO, those. So like many other transient lodging tax codes like ours that predate the current era of short-term rentals, the current Sandy code does not clearly state that it requires these platforms to collect and remit lodging taxes to the city. because this just didn't exist in 1996, last time this code section was touched. So this code change proposed this evening in this ordinance includes updates which makes it clear and explicit that these booking platforms are required to collect and remit lodging taxes to the city when they're collecting rent and fees from the customer. And many other taxing jurisdictions do this, including the state of Oregon, when they recently adopted language and are doing the same thing. These proposed changes also make a number of changes to the definitions in this chapter. These include deleting the definition of hotel and motel. So the chapter was previously called hotel and motel tax, and it's being, and these definitions are being changed to transient lodging or transient lodging facility, which will include a hotel, motel, house, condo, and all those other things that are included for temporary occupancy, like short-term rentals. The proposed changes also add definitions for short-term rental, hosting platform, transient lodging, tax collector. The proposed changes makes it explicit that housing platforms are lodging intermediaries. Intermediaries are considered transient lodging collectors, and transient lodging collectors are required to collect and remit lodging taxes to the taxing jurisdiction. All that to say, that's kind of the legal code language that is the mechanism for the arrangement that I just previously discussed, which is those platforms are required to collect and remit. The proposed changes also include a number of housekeeping changes with additions of boilerplate tax administration language. Again, this language was modeled off the League of Oregon Cities Model TLT code. I won't go through all these. These are, again, just housekeeping things like assessing penalty and interest on unpaid tax, appealing determinations by the city, and refunds of overpaid tax. So all boilerplate things for, you know, administering a tax. Our code just didn't have many of these things. There's a small budgetary impact for these changes. Essentially, we believe that there are currently taxes that should be being collected and remitted to the city that aren't being, and so the passing of this ordinance should enable the city to collect additional transient lodging tax. It's hard to say how much. Right now, we're getting about $100,000 per biennium in this tax, and so it should be a modest increase on that. So with that, I'll stop there. Legal counsel, who we work closely with in drafting these changes, is also available this evening for questions. Josh, did you have anything you wanted to add?
Anything else till you have some questions for us?
Thank you. You, Tyler. So here's the process for public testimony. Each person providing testimony must provide their name and address for the record. If you do not wish to state your address publicly, you must provide it to the city recorder before you begin your testimony. This can be done either in person or via email at recorder@ci.sandy.or.us. If you have documents that you wish to be considered by the council, they must be formally placed in the record of this hearing. To do that, either before or after you speak, email your materials to recorder@ci.sandy.or.us, and staff will make sure your evidence is properly processed. Please try to avoid repetition. If someone else has already expressed the same thoughts, it's fine to simply state that you agree with the testimony of a previous speaker. To offer public testimony for those joining us in person this evening, please raise your hand to indicate you'd like to speak. If you're attending online, click the raise hand button and wait to be recognized. If you're attending via telephone, dial *9 to raise your hand and wait to be recognized. I will call on each person when it is their turn to speak. Each speaker will receive up to 5 minutes to testify. The city recorder will let you know when you have 20 seconds remaining. So I'd like to go ahead and call for testimony. I don't believe there's anybody in the room, but is there anybody online or on the phone that would like to testify, Jeff?
Okay, Mayor, I'll just wait 1 second for any raised hands. Mayor, I don't see any raised hands.
Okay, thank you. Tyler, can you give us a step recap recommendation, please?
Yes, Mayor. Staff recommends the adoption of ordinance 2025-12, amending Sandy Municipal Code, Chapter 3.28.
Thank you. May I have a motion to close the public hearing?
Make a motion, we close the public hearing.
I'll second that. A motion by Councillor Sheldon and a second by Councillor Hanley to close the public hearing. All those in favor vote aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion passes. Okay, comments and questions?
I have some questions and some comments. I don't know, others, want me to hit a couple low points? The, in the, why, under section 328.070.c, it talks about the 5% rate, and it talks about this concept of a transient lodging tax collector, which is some of that new language that's in there now, correct? There's a statement, though, that says who's responsible to collect and the entitled to that 5% reimbursement fee. This happens 2 or 3 times. So that under that section, there's a 5% kickback.
Can you clarify which section you're looking at?
This is 328.070.c. So if the tax collector collects the $100, they can keep $5 if they remit it in a timely fashion, correct?
Correct.
So the question I have here is, there's another section in 328.040 that talks about this limited the transient tax collector. But it also talks about the owner, and it says they're either one or
Jointly and severally liable.
right. So how does that relate then to clauses like this when it says the tax collector can have 5%? Does that mean either? How does that figure out? Who gets the 5%?
Right, so when there are multiple parties involved who qualify as a tax collector, they all have the legal obligation to make sure that that tax is collected.
Yes.
And they get 5% administration fee. It's up to them to sort it out amongst themselves, how they're gonna split that responsibility up. So it's typically, I think, it goes into the terms and conditions for listing with Airbnb for.
Gotcha.
Just to clarify on that then, so what I'm familiar with is, we have Airbnb, but a lot of times I'll go and look and see if they also rent it out just kind of by themselves on their website, because you avoid some of the fees from these companies. And so if they're out there, if I make a reservation directly on their website, don't pay these other fees, they've collected the money, and so that's an example where they're still paying us the local taxes, and then also the Airbnb or whoever else has got it listed. Okay.
Correct.
Got any other questions?
Yeah, this is a simple one, housekeeping, 328.050, just the title of it. It left out the word tax, I think. I think it's intended to be there, transient lodging tax collectors. Is that correct? Duties?
You're right.
So if we do make a motion at some point, I would also hope that we make that minor correction as well.
Where does the revenue from this tax end up? Where has it ended up historically, and where will the increase, where will it end up?
It goes into the general fund, and it is required by ordinance to be used only for tourism and economic development purposes.
Okay, so it's earmarked just for that.
Right.
Well, there is a bill in the legislature to allow more flexibility on where that goes. For example, infrastructure and things like that.
Yeah, so there's a current state law that says that 70% to tourism promotion, which is defined 30% for general purposes. This tax predates that law and is not subject to that law.
Oh.
So this tax, the restrictions on use come from when this tax was originally put in place by the city. The city said it's going to be tourism and economic development. So that's what applies to this.
Okay,
We'll talk about this later, but if you at some point want to increase your tax amount, unless that bill passes, the new amount will be subject to that 70-30 split. It's possible there will be some legislative relief that will change that before we have that conversation.
Other comments or questions?
Make a motion? Yeah, a couple more, sorry, real quick. 328, see, 328.50 again, subsection F, the new F. This seems to be if somebody wants to stay 3 days at a time throughout more than 10 months, then they'd be excluded from having to pay the tax.
This is 328.60, I think.
Yeah, 60, sorry, the red, 328.60 exemptions. Why do we exempt for that? case? Are we required to?
So it's 30 consecutive days. So that's it, the definition of a short-term rental is
Oh,
less than
okay.
30.
It's not a transient
Right, so
lodging
it's
stay
no
at
longer
that point.
transient lodging at that point.
Gotcha.
And sometimes it, it happens that somebody books for less than 30 days and then stays over, or they change rooms, but they're still staying at the same facility.
Gotcha. So
Then
they
it's
can
exempt
change
from
rooms. It's
transient
still, okay, I understand now. Thank you. That helps.
Do we have any ability to verify what they in fact should be paying with the county tax collector? Is there any?
So their records are auditable by the city. It's possible also that there could be some coordination amongst taxing agencies. I don't know how, if Clackamas County does this, I know in some other counties, the county will collect city taxes for you, so there's just one agency doing all that. I know the state also will do that for you because they have their state transient lodging tax, and then they'll just write a check. So those are options too.
Who does it now for us? We do or?
We do.
We do? Okay,
We just have one
right.
payer currently, so
Right.
it's always been administratively very easy for us to
Okay.
administer that internally. I think it's definitely worth looking at, sorry to jump in here. I think it's definitely worth looking at, depending on the volume of short-term rental platforms that may pop up with this, looking at a third-party collector that has a little more of a network to look at state and county records to verify that people are paying what they should be paying, but some of that's gonna be determined based on, the increase in volume that we see over the next several months and really getting a handle on how many short-term rentals are there in the community that need to be remitting the tax. If there's only a handful, we'll probably keep doing what we're doing now, but if the volume increases, it may make sense to work with another party.
And just for information purposes, when this came out the other day, I kind of spent some time on Airbnb and VRBO and kind of put in different dates throughout the year and could really only find one that's in the city limits. There might be like a secondary one. Most of them are outside the city limits currently.
I
So
have two within.
just, and I could have been plucking in dates that they were already booked. I'm assuming there's more than one, but just, we're not talking like a bunch. Yeah.
No, I think this is more setting us up for future.
Oh, absolutely, 100%. I was pretty much just giving that out for information purposes that I just kind of messed around, so.
I think I have one last one.
Yeah, just one more thing to Counselor Smallwood's point. I think that, I kind of did the same thing and I was able to find a few, and you can actually go through and drill down to what it is that they're charging. And it seems apparent that in some cases, at least, that they're not charging our tax. And so
They're not charging what?
they're not charging our tax.
Oh, no, right,
Yeah.
No, it's a good catch. Yeah.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So under the definition in the first section for rent, it doesn't specifically list booking fee. So would a booking fee, because quite often, like I know in booking.com, they will separate the booking fee out from the rent. Are we collecting tax on booking fees as well or not? Wasn't clear.
Any fee that is not optional, and it does include, let's see, it's the third line up from the bottom. Transportation to the airport, additional person charges, booking service fees.
Oh. See,
So-
you're brilliant.
Yeah,
All right,
and
that was
anything
a-
they don't get to opt out of, it's calculated as part of it.
Okay.
Right.
And that was a specific conversation that we had, that we wanted to be intentional about including it, and we opted to use some tried and true language that another jurisdiction was using.
Thanks. No further questions, Your Honor.
Okay. May I have a first reading of ordinance 2025-12, Jeff, please?
Yes, Mayor, this is ordinance number 2025-12. An ordinance amending Sandy Municipal Code, chapter 3.28, hotel motel tax.
With the amendment. Title change.
With the amendment to the one section. Did you get that?
The title change.
For the
I do have
title
it
change?
noted in 32850.
Okay. May I have a motion to approve the first reading?
I move to approve the first reading of ordinance 2025-12.
Second.
I have a motion by Counselor Sheldon and a second by Counselor Smallwood to approve the reading with the amendment for 2025-12. All those in favor, vote aye.
Aye.
Against, vote nay. Motion passed for the first reading. unanimously. May I get a second reading?
Yes, ordinance 2025-12, an ordinance amending Sandy Municipal Code, chapter 3.28, hotel motel tax.
May I get a motion to approve the second reading, please?
I move that we approve the second reading of ordinance 2025-12.
I will second the motion.
All right, I have a motion by Council Sheldon and a second by Council Ramsayer to approve the second reading of ordinance 2025-12. All those in favor vote aye.
Aye.
Against, vote nay. Motion passed unanimously. Thank you. Thank you very
Thanks,
much.
Tyler.
All right,
Yes, sir.
good job. And
Simply needed. Yeah. Can I ask a follow-up question on this now that we've approved it? How do we get the word out?
Yeah, so my understanding, and Josh or Tyler jump in here, we'll send notice to those platforms that bookings happen on. And they'll do their behind the scenes working to apply the tax to the appropriate properties within the geographical boundaries of the city. And it should take care of itself, but easier said than done sometimes, right? So we'll keep checking in and making sure that the applicable parties are paying. What needs to be
In my
paid.
experience, these platforms are generally pretty compliant when it comes to, tax collection and remittance. The bigger challenge is some of the regulatory requirements that we'll talk about at a future date.
We do have an expert from, City of Portland's tax division, so he's got past experience working with many of these platforms and ensuring compliance, so that will come in handy, I'm sure, throughout the process.
Great. All right, let's move on to the report from the city manager.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. First, just wanted to officially welcome and congratulate Officer Ferguson on joining the Sandy Police Department. It's great to have another position filled. Excited to see what, different background and experiences he brings to our force and helps further round out the law enforcement, that's serving our community. And so just excited to have another person here. We've got final work being done this week at Cedar Park, so some concrete repairs, final landscaping and things like that. But the drainage is, as I mentioned, installed and it's working. The kickers were supposed to have been completely finalized and remedied last week. I need to follow up with Michelle to make sure that's completely wrapped up. But on the docket this week is some of the final concrete repair work and the final landscape work. So fingers crossed we're able to close everything out by Friday. But at the very least, we're on the very, very tail end of that project now, and very excited to put a bow on that and wrap it up. Also mentioned to the council on Friday and shared with all of the city staff this morning, but I'll make a formal announcement now. AJ Thorne did accept the offer for Public Works Director. I'm very excited to have that position filled now. I know Jeff's excited to start relinquishing some of those interim Public Works Director duties that he was handling. As I mentioned in my email, AJ brings a wealth of experience in wastewater management from his prior life in Gresham. He's also intimately familiar with all of our water and wastewater projects here, as he's been boots on the ground as the assistant director for the last 2.5-ish years. So just excited to have him officially at the helm in that department, and bring his expertise in engineering and wastewater to our current projects. So if you see him, please pass along a congratulations. He's excited for the opportunity and we're excited to have him.
Is there a plan to hire another assistant director, another agent?
It's a great question. So part of my direction to all staff, so I'll get to your question, but I'm going to answer it a little bit of a roundabout way. Part of my direction to all staff for any open position that we have right now is stop and review. What are they doing? What are they touching? Who's mandating that work needs to be done? Is it an IGA we have with another entity? Is it city practice? Is it municipal code that's directing that work? Let's figure out what we're doing, what the capacity is that role functioning as efficiently as it could? Is there a different streamlined process that work can be done? And so to actually get to your answer, I'm sure there will be a position that is filled in the near future, but what that position looks like exactly is a little bit up in the air still. I'm going to spend some time working with AJ to figure out exactly what he thinks that department needs now that he's at the helm. And make sure that we're, getting the most bang for our buck in that area, whether that's another engineer, whether that's another project manager, whether that's just an administrative assistant to help with all of the paperwork and contracts. And, I'm not sure exactly what that looks like yet, but I want to make sure that all of our positions that we're refilling are done efficiently and that we're not just refilling a specific role because that role has been here. So long-winded answer, but our bond sale for the water projects is scheduled for this Thursday. So market has been a little volatile over the last few days, to say the least. So we're anxiously awaiting to see kind of what those final numbers come in at. But that sale should be processed on Thursday. If things just get totally out of whack between now and Thursday, we do have the option to delay the sale by another week or so, or just pull it and wait 2 or 3 weeks until things stabilize. We're hopeful that we don't have to do that because we would really like to get that closed up and get money in hand so we can start working on projects. But all that to say, we are continuing to move forward with that process right now and hope to have the funds received soon so that we can keep working on water projects. Rounding out a conversation from earlier, Arbor Day is April 25th when the city will be doing our Arbor Day event. I do not have a time for that, but I can pass that information
Is it
along.
24th or 25th?
I show 25th that we've publicized on the website, but if you have a different date,
24th is what I have, but yeah, I'll check back with you.
okay.
So
Well, I'll follow up in an email.
What does Arbor Day mean? I mean, not like the.
Much like Earth Day.
I mean, what will we do as a city?
Yes, Arbor Day is a holiday to celebrate nature. Its purpose is to encourage people to plant trees. So we will be celebrating that Friday. Historically, I've not confirmed the plans, but historically, we've picked a park or a green space, planted numerous trees. Staff has brought refreshments and donuts to those that are participating. And it's just been sort of a community-based event to get more trees planted. I think that's it.
And as you noted, Mayor, at Sandy Bluff Park is where that was.
Sandy
thank
Bluff
you,
on
Jeff.
Thursday or Friday?
I'm showing Thursday, but we will confirm.
All right.
Thursday's the 24th, right?
That's correct.
We'll follow up via email as soon as we can correct and confirm that date, because the website shows 25th.
And the salt cleanup?
Solve cleanup is the 26th, the following day, Saturday. Well, I guess I shouldn't say the following day because I don't know what day the other event is, but Solve
Right,
is the
right.
26th
Got it.
at 9 a.m.
Okay.
And several of you have participated in that before. That's really just a community event to clean up our parks and open spaces, parks and trails, and really make an impact and get some of that litter and debris. I think there's been homeless camps in the past that have been cleaned up that day as well. And
That's
so
the same day as the Kiwanis breakfast, isn't it?
Yes, I think so.
potentially, I don't have the
It
Kiwanis
is.
schedule in
It is.
front of
It
me.
is.
Okay,
And I just received a
Previously,
report.
that's Sportsman's Breakfast.
I just received a message from Parks here in real time. It is indeed the Thursday, the 24th for Arbor Day.
There you go.
thank you, Parks crew. Appreciate you being in attendance and keeping us in line.
And is there any update on the community outreach officer?
Yeah, so we did make a job offer today. It's signed today. Do we have a start date?
No, we have to do background.
Okay, so we're gonna work through the background check process.
Okay.
We'll share, once background is done, we'll share name and more information, but we have made an offer. Very excited to have that almost wrapped up. I know Chief and his team are very excited to have that body almost on board. So I'll keep you informed throughout this week and next week as we get the background check done. But things are moving along quite nicely in that area.
Be great for them to work the salt cleanup. The 26th.
If we have someone on board, that would be
That's
fantastic.
not gonna happen. Background. Don't move that fast.
If we could make that happen, we will make that happen, but no promises, given the timing there. Thank you.
Okay.
Do we have a Nelly update today?
A what update?
She's here.
Oh.
Come on down, Nelly.
So I mean, do we?
I don't have very much, honestly, but after tomorrow, we will
You're loud enough.
Okay.
Yeah.
I never was told I was quiet, but we will have met with everyone on the House Committee, the Ways and Means Subcommittee on Capital Construction. And then starting in May, we'll start with the full Ways and Means Committee, but those members just aren't taking updates. But actually Tyler came down long drive for a 15-minute meeting to meet with the co-chair of Ways and Means, which one of the co-chairs, obviously, but Senator Lieber, and we had a really good meeting. When we showed up, we've done the groundwork before. We had actually met with her back in November, October. And she remembered our story, was happy to see the direction, because back then we didn't really have a very clear-cut direction yet in terms of whether or not we were going to Gresham. We had mentioned it, but she was excited that we were going with that route, excited about the regional solution piece of it, excited about the amount of people that it'll affect. And I don't know if you have any other takeaways from that, but.
No, I think certainly a repeat meeting has been helpful from my experience, because you don't spend the first 10 of your 15 minutes laying the groundwork. Senator Lieber already knew the backstory, and so that really allowed us to talk about the future. Mayor Walker was virtually in attendance there, was able to chime in with development opportunities and RUGB and things like that. So I think we were able to kind of shift the narrative on just what our problem is and focus a little bit more on the impact of what this funding would actually mean for Sandy, which is a helpful sort of pivot from a lot of our normal conversations that just kind of get caught up in, well, what's your problem? Tell us about the 3 basin rule. And then you don't get a chance to always get to and what is the actual tangible benefit of the dollars that could be invested. So yeah, I think that was.
She cheered Sandy when we walked in, so
She did.
Yep. True story. So we're just doing the rounds slowly but surely, but we're getting there. And so far we haven't had any negative feedback to date, so.
Oh, go ahead.
Well, please.
Well, I was gonna add, and Mayor, you mentioned this briefly, so we anticipate a public hearing for Ways and Means in like a month or so?
Yeah.
Okay. And so we've begun the effort, as you mentioned, Mayor, of kind of gathering letters of support. We have a template and received one this morning from a board member of the Clackamas River Basin Council, which is great, about Bull Run CPO. But we're gonna keep plugging away on that to try to come in as a united front for that public hearing.
Yeah, it'll be nice. It should be a good opportunity, and I'll make sure to try and get you signed up as soon as possible, as soon as that goes live, so that you're not sitting there for hours waiting to get an opportunity to speak, so.
So I'll put it out there before I do my update, but I was at our C4 and they just, basically the budget package had kind of come down. And there was a lot of chatter around not being well.
How you mean, how much money is available?
Yes, how much money is being available. So I just wonder, one, I realize it's that way every time and all of that, right? It's always a crisis, but viability of our ask, I guess, towards you. And then the second piece is, with that information, like outside of just form letters, is there anything else that we can be doing to kind of keep that moving forward, and or even like direct or explaining our situation in a beneficial way, I guess is what I'm trying to say.
I mean, to the extent that you all can build partnerships with Gresham and, other cities, maybe even Fairview and Wood Village. I mean, I don't think they're as important, but, to the extent that you can build those relationships and really harness that support would be really good. And if you have any relationships with any of the legislators that are on the committees, which I can send to Jeff and Tyler to get out to you, if, just a phone call, if you know them, would be helpful. But I mean, we are doing the rounds, and, ultimately, in terms of the amount of money of the ask, I've not heard any one person say that's too much. The only person was Rob Nose, but after he's one of the co-chairs of the subcommittee. But after we talked about it some more, because we got kind of cut off early, I met with him again. The mayor and I met with him, and he had to go testify. So I met with him again, and he's like, Sandy, yep, no, I understand. And I think he's okay with it. But in terms of the amount of money, we won't know a lot until the May forecast, so that's going to be the really definitive time where they know exactly how much money they have. But I mean, everyone else has been, they said it's reasonable. I talked to Representative Drazen and she said she's been, kind of doing the rounds with it as well. And she said she's never heard anything about 14 million being too much. And people are saying, look, we really understand the need for Sandy and your ability to grow. So.
I'll touch base on a couple other things that I know are going on when it's my time. All right, any other things?
That's all I have, but please feel free to reach out to me if you ever have any questions or if you have a lead on something, I'm happy to follow up with anyone, so.
Thank you, Donna.
Yeah, thanks.
Thanks, Nellie.
John?
So I had a little, after we met, after we took a break, talked to some of those developers. I was a little disappointed because of their feeling that it was, all of a sudden didn't know anything, or first thing they heard about it was Sunday kind of thing. And granted, we don't want to like do these things and create this rush of last minute applicants, but we've known this increase is coming. We've been working on it for years, quite literally. So I think there's some sort of a disconnect potentially. Obviously, I'm only hearing one side of the story, but I think it's worth looking into to see if we're, as a city, communicating to developers as transparently as we could, given that we've, like I said, been working on this for years. The methodology, we've talked about it, going back to 4+ years ago when we started raising SDC. So I'm kind of like, why are they surprised? But that's, maybe, I don't know what they're hearing through that department.
Yeah, I can't speak a lot to that off the cuff. What I would say is, with the SDC methodology updates that were brought before the council at the last meeting, that had a 90-day notice requirement that was sent out. There was clearly no one in attendance for that meeting, which is the meat and potatoes of, that's how the sausage is made. So
anyways, I think it's just, I'm not saying there's a specific thing that we need to do, but maybe, I'm not suggesting we become developer super friendly, but I think we should be transparent, and should be able to communicate our direction, where we're going. I was surprised at their lack of understanding what the moratorium really means too, which was also disconcerting considering that I would think they would know. So more to do, I think, in that department would be my suggestion. We had a SandyNet meeting this week or 2 weeks ago, I guess right after our last council meeting. And I gave them a couple of suggestions, really Greg, I guess, in terms of what I'm hoping to see in the budget proposal. Because the master plan that we've reviewed but not quite adopted, because we're waiting for a small update to it. So it probably won't be adopted before the budget sessions, or maybe during or something. But it calls for a need to increase the revenue of SandyNet so that it starts to approach that sustainable level. I think we talked about that before. I recommended to him that he has that proposal in his budget, so that, and not as a rate that we're going to jump this rate up X%, but rather that the revenue target gets bumped so that they have an opportunity in the next biennium to then look at readjusting the rate structure so that they can make it more affordable at the low end, appropriately charge businesses and so forth.
I have to step out and do another meeting.
But this is important.
I know it is not.
It's not important. Anyway, so that's just something I recommended. They're also working on basically a worksheet or a methodology to help determine where should SandyNet be expanded, and under what conditions, and when should the city invest. That's something the mayor had been asking for. And I did provide some additional feedback for factors, including, in addition to things they were looking at, that would involve things like not just the ROI, but also the potential take rate of the area, exclusivity or underserved communities, taking into account their existing radio infrastructure. Sometimes we forget that they still have the radio stuff, which I used to have back in the early days. But they still have customers on that, so the ability to retire old technology should be a factor they consider as well. Then the cost and revenue, but also to provide some subjective amounts so that sometimes it's, you just need to, do a political favor, or I don't know what the situation is. Maybe we're going to dig a trench in front of their house, to put a pipeline in. Maybe we should be considering, sending that expansion at the time to help ease that right pain. So anyway, that's what I recommended to them. Hopefully we'll see those things coming forward. That was it. Thanks. If you ever have questions on sending that, let me know. Like not technical ones, but I mean the program.
Chamber meeting this week. The president and gosh, now I don't remember the technical word, but it was a VFW presentation. And among the things they talked about was they're looking for a new home that's ADA accessible. So if anybody has any needs on something like that, they would love some.
VFW or the chamber?
No, sorry, the VFW.
Okay, got
sorry,
it.
the VFW is looking chamber meeting with the VFW
right.
presentation. So they're looking for a new home that's ADA accessible. That's their big thing. And they're amazing and they do incredible things for our community. Library board meeting. Still, I'm going through stuff for the strategic plan, but the big upcoming event is the library stakeholders meeting, which is going to happen on the 16th. Hoping to get more input for their strategic plan. And Sandy Mountain Festival meeting tomorrow. That's all I got.
I had my first transit advisory board meeting on the 19th of March. Andy is amazing. She's got everything very understandable, very well explained. That department is very well run from just what I saw from my first meeting. The other members of the board and the staff are really knowledgeable and really helpful in explaining things. And there's a lot of acronyms that I'm way behind the times on because I'm not in that department. They do have a couple, I believe, electric buses coming online in May. If everything goes okay. There was a little snafu with the EPA and something called NEPA. And there was a problem with a cultural, some of the studies they had to do were not accepted this time. So they're having to kind of readjust it. But if everything goes well, it looks like they have the funding for those and those will be delivered in May, hopefully. Also, just a really well laid out department. Andy and her staff are really good and really friendly, and it all really makes sense the way they run it, and it's an amazing program. On Friday, March 28th, seems like I go to the park a lot. I just kind of stopped by because I drive by after work. I stopped by on late morning, March 28th, and the backhoe was in the field. It wasn't being worked on. It was a little rainy that day. There were just a few people there, but I did get a hold of Tyler because one of the picnic tables had been drug over to the observation area and the overlook deck area. And I was a little concerned that not only does that impede the purpose, I thought, of the observation deck, to be out there watching your kiddos and, just enjoying the view. If there were people sitting there, it would be maybe a little uncomfortable to scoot behind them to go out there. I didn't think that was the purpose of that location. My other concern was there were scrapes on the pavement from the table being moved. And so I kind of asked Tyler if there was a plan to kind of tether those down, somehow secure them, because if they can be moved from one location to the other on the observation deck, they could potentially be going home with someone as well. And so that was a little bit of a concern. We can't really afford to, we're already paying enough for everything else. We can't afford to replace picnic tables that are disappearing. And it also kind of just impedes the enjoyment of the park for people if they can't get to that area, or if people just move the tables wherever they choose, it could create a problem. And so I got a hold of Tyler and let him know, and he was gonna reach out to Rochelle and That's, that was my concern with that.
Yeah, if you don't mind, I'll
No,
jump in. So I reached out to park staff. Couple reasons why those tables aren't bolted down currently, and certainly we can explore this more, but first point is that when we do host an event there, it makes it really challenging to have the adequate space underneath the covered area. If the picnic tables are bolted down, you're not gonna be able to move them and have adequate gathering space. The second reason is that we've had issues in other parks where the tables are bolted down and people attempt to remove them, and it ends up doing more damage to the concrete than the occasional surface, roughing up that happens if you drag the table. So, I'm not gonna say this is the best solution, but it seems like an opportunity for maybe more signage around, please don't block certain areas with the tables, or move tables outside of this area or that area, but we're really trying to prevent the more significant damage of the bolt being ripped out of the ground and doing some significant damage to the concrete. And then, of course, being able to have that flexibility when we have any sort of event there, being able to move the tables out of the way. And think of the grand opening. It was sunny that day, but had that been rainy with several hundred people trying to listen to the speakers, if those tables would have been there, would have really limited that usable space for a gathering. So if there's other feedback or comments, I'm happy to take that back to Parks and we can brainstorm.
Well, it could be
a
that they
different
were there
solution.
because the parents, were, they want, a bench would meet the need to be able to sit there and keep an eye on their kids, because it is a good, you can see a large, but maybe kind of moving it out of the main overlook there and just kind of to the side so that they do want to sit down, they can sit on a bench. And I can't remember exactly what, there's any benches right around there, but, just providing that seating area for people to be able to look out over their kids.
So my understanding is that overlook area is technically an ADA
Yeah.
viewing
Right.
platform,
Yeah.
so we can't have anything permanently
there,
installed
no.
that's too,
But off to
but
the
yes,
side,
off to the sides,
off to
yeah.
the wings, yeah.
Yep.
And
So we can look into that.
So we anchor buildings down to concrete with the right bolts. I want to see the guy that breaks them. So I think if you do it the right way, you can have both. I mean, if you just doing the holder with the bolt rolls down so that you can, or some other way to lock it. I think there's ways to do it so that you can still have a smooth surface when you want and still lock it down.
But then we lose the ability to use that covered area without.
No, you can, I think you have the ability to have a lock that screws in that can come out so that you have a smooth surface with the appropriate lock.
Or
I mean, that's the point. You want to have it smooth, right? You don't want to have
Exactly.
big things that you're tripping over. But I think it's possible, so.
Just a couple things. One, and I already talked to Tyler, he was gonna reach out to you. I don't know if he did or not, but just to the group. I had said in the last meeting, I wasn't gonna be available the last week of April and the first week of May for budget. And so we have 2 meetings scheduled in that week, in those 2 weeks. So, we need to maybe look for some dates. But, cause I'll be, at a work conference. So, and then lastly, just for food for thought, I didn't realize if I hadn't been meeting one-on-one with Tyler on Friday, I would have showed up tonight at 7. Because the original thing went out with 6 o'clock and then 7 o'clock, and I'm just used to council meetings at 7. So if we're gonna change the time, let's make it a little more noticeable. And then also, I know we had a good turnout tonight. I was a little surprised by that because of the difference in time, but we do need to let the public know that we're changing a public meeting time. Because council meetings are set at 7 o'clock. So just food for thought. And that's all I got.
Yeah, I picked up on it at 4.
Yeah, I was actually thankful because I asked him on Friday, I was like, there's 2 times. And he's like, oops. So, yeah, I would have shown up tonight at 7. That would have been a good look, so.
I was gonna say the same thing about the 6 to 7, but you've got it all for me, so I don't need to repeat it. Parks and Rec meeting, I have my first one Thursday. I did sit on a Mount Hood Economic Alliance board meeting about a week before they oriented me, but it was interesting. I asked a lot of questions and learned about it in my orientation, but for those who don't know, Mount Hood Economic Alliance was gifted a long time ago about $900,000 to give loans at a small interest rate for a small business. And there's very few strings attached, meaning they can give it to immigrant without social security numbers. To help small businesses. And on our board call, we actually gave a small loan. It was $20,000 for a painting company out of Hood River to buy another van. And we used their existing van as collateral, and that's going to give that painter an opportunity to expand their market. And I really was concerned because of where their location was. I wanted to know how big, Clackamas or Sandy would be involved in that. And I found out Sandy is one of the biggest communities they have on their program, so it was really neat. I also found out that they used almost a quarter of their fund to fund a local Sandy business recently on a refinance, which is unheard of because normally they do only $50,000 loans. And this company in Sandy got $250,000. And so it was a tremendous help to a local business. That was right before I got on, but so I do think it's an opportunity to let our small business entrepreneurs in Sandy know that there's an outlet for them. And what they really do is they take high-risk people and help them convert those loans into normal bank loans.
Nice.
So they start off with the loan from the MHEA, and then they convert before the balloon payment comes due to a regular conventional loan at the bank, and then they can pay it off. And that's how they make it work. Actually, it was amazing to learn what the opportunities were for small business. So tremendous economic development opportunities for people in Sandy if they know about it. And then I did another meeting with somebody else. The wastewater and stormwater systems development, and I'm not going to speak to it because I'm a fly on the wall. I showed up an hour and a half late to it because it starts in the middle of the afternoon and I couldn't get out of work fast enough. When I got there, I heard Don talking, so I don't have any updates about that meeting.
The slides went out. The slides went out
The slides did go out
this
there,
weekend with the
I
report.
saw that, so I'm still a fly on the wall, learning how to speak that language. So I won't give updates about it for now. Other than that, I want to give a recognition today for the developers that came out. I meant it when I said it. I want to see our community grow. It's the only way we get money. I think we can grow at a responsible rate, though. Doesn't have to be too fast, doesn't have to be too slow. We can all decide what responsible is in our own sense. But I do think we're paying the sins past from things we did, and this just has to be done. And our residents can't afford it anymore, and we need their help. Last but not least, go to the breakfast on Saturday, the 26th. And it's at the firehouse. They make great eggs. And I'll be there if anybody wants to join.
Thank you. I went to the Clackamas County Business Alliance, which is another entity out there, and all the mayors, many of the mayors from Clackamas County cities were there, and each one was given a chance to answer 5 different questions. Nellie actually hosted it. She did a great job. And it was interesting, kind of there were some common things that I saw presented there from the different mayors, and a lot of it was that many of those folks are in the process of doing infrastructure, water and wastewater projects that are not cheap, and they're concerned about costs, things like that. So it was great to kind of hear that, and some of the, a bit of the concern for some local control and things like that. And on that note, Josh, I was just wondering on that House Bill 2128, am I right on that one? Let's see. 2138. House Bill 2138. My understanding on that one is that won't apply to us because we're not 25,000. And I just wanted to kind of get some feedback at some point from you that that's the case. I haven't seen anything about it from Kelly, so I assume we may not be affected by it. Thankfully, because it's not. Well, I just won't say anything about it, but hopefully we just won't be affected. There was a question tonight, and I really appreciate those folks coming out there. One of the questions, well, I got quite a few questions, but just one of them was just wanting to know more about that. He said he was making ERU payments. And so I kind of want to find out what that exactly means, because I was a little confused about that. Because I said, is that business? I said, is that building permits or is that something else? And so anyways, I'll check back with you, Tyler.
Yeah, we can
and
follow up
Kelly
after the meeting.
on that. Our approach to the next month's legislature is to really, and actually it's a long-term strategy too, is to just have this consortium of folks that support us, going to Gresham, and part of that is like 300,000 people in the Clackamas River watershed will benefit from us going to Gresham and getting out of Tickle Creek. So getting letters from, Lake Oswego or all these other folks that have drinking water out of there would really help. A strong comment that we heard from some of the legislatures was just making sure we have kind of support from City of Gresham, because it's a bigger city. They have, some different relationships with some of those legislatures. And so it's really important to kind of have them hopefully advocate for us. So I have, I'm meeting with the mayor and scheduling that here this week. It's actually going to happen next week, but and also include, we've kind of got this list of folks that can be our collaborators. And we've, as he said, Jeff said, we've got some, form letters that they could use, or they're welcome to write their own. But basically the housing lobby, unions, the other towns, and our ratepayers and our developers. And so all of those folks, having those letters from a whole slew of different kinds of folks would really help us, because it shows the fact that we've got so much support for that. And it's not just Sandy folks asking for it.
How do we do that? How can we help?
It's just a matter of kind of doing the outreach. We do have as part of that, we are in the process of hiring a communications consultant to help us kind of take that effort and figure out, that's a short-term project, but then the longer-term project is just kind of having the outreach, the public outreach consultant kind of work with us on, Jeff's done a great job of kind of putting together the key messages about, what we're doing, why we're doing it, all of that. But it's putting it in a format, like if it's Instagram or it's, I'm not saying TikTok, but, just different formats of, like ads at the movie theater, ads at the, different kind of formats that would be helpful to kind of catch people and just kind of, in bite-sized pieces, because, you just can't go in, and it's not just something that we just put on our website and walk away. So it's really kind of that outreach and how to really explain all of this to everybody in our community and beyond. So I know Tyler went to some training that he was, want to just mention that?
Yeah, sure. So I spent the first half of last week at a ICMA leadership conference. ICMA, it's International City Manager Association. It's a cohort of 40 of us that are either early city administrators, city managers, early in that career, or people looking to move into city management. So spent 2 days just talking about leadership, ethics, and government, kind of a whole, the cohort's made up of people from all different areas of public life. So there's a couple of people that focused in finance previously, land use planning, homelessness task force, and homelessness, specific organizations. And so really just a wide breadth of information and viewpoints and thought processes, and good opportunity to get to see what other communities throughout the country are experiencing and how they're managing those crises. I was not the only city there that had water and wastewater issues. The only one from Oregon, but not the only one in the country. And so part of this project, it's a 12-month leadership program, and part of the 12 months concludes with a capstone project. And so we kind of split off into small groups to figure out who has an area of interest. And I sort of gravitated with a couple other people that had these big infrastructure challenges, and not just talking about how do you prevent the challenge from happening, right? But how do you effectively manage the crisis from the start, and how do you build that coalition from the beginning? I think Sandy's really unique that we had such a long sort of facility plan amendment process, and it took a long time to get to sort of the preferred solution. So hopefully other communities have maybe a little more of a end result that's known earlier on in the game and could mitigate some of those communication challenges that we've experienced here. But I think that a group of 5 of us are going to focus on that whole start to finish, from day one, knowing you have a problem, how do you communicate it, how do you fund it, how do you make sure that that funding package isn't just building, but also maintaining for the long term, and ultimately then building and completing the project and have that be sort of our capstone piece of work that we can provide to other cities and agencies that are part of ICMA as a sort of framework for what to do or what not to do. And so, yeah, it was a great opportunity. I'm really looking forward to the next 12 months. I did not enjoy my flight home. It was a very long delay out of Chicago because of some weather in the Midwest, southern area with tornadoes and lightning and thunder. And so a lot of time spent in the airport, but a good opportunity, made it home safe.
This was something that we did ask Tyler to do when we hired him as city manager, so I'm glad he was able to start this process.
Yeah, I'll add one more thing to that too. So part of the desire of the council at the time was certainly leadership and that sort of training, but becoming a certified credentialed manager through ICMA. And so this is earning 1 year of credit towards the years of service to get that designation. So just chipping away.
Yeah, good for you. Yeah, appreciate it. And you got away for it. We are also in the process of hiring an economic development contractor to kind of work with us. And Chris, if what I'd like to do, I think our tentative framework is to go ahead and meet with, Jeff and Tyler and myself and you being on the economic development committee and just kind of talk about a framework of what we'd like to kind of focus on, and then plan on doing a workshop with the city council to kind of gel that up and make sure everybody's on board with the approach and the priorities, and then take that to the economic development group. And we can schedule that around your schedule.
Yep.
Thank you. The other team that is going to be meeting here in the next couple of weeks is the community livability team. And we kind of have the framework for that, the scope of issues and areas of concern to start on broadly are traffic safety, homeless outreach and management, code enforcement in neighborhoods and businesses, and code enforcement in parks, trails, and open space properties. So that's kind of the big picture, but then we're going to be focusing on, obviously that we can't do everything all at once. So we're going to be taking some individual bites of those different areas and focusing in on those. The Easter egg hunt being put on by the Sandy Kiwanis is April 19th from 10 a.m. on in Mining Park. So that's a huge popular event. And then the Sportsman Breakfast is also being sponsored and managed by the Sandy Kiwanis group and with help from the fire department. And so that is, like you said, Saturday, April 26th from 7 a.m. to 1 p.m. And they are looking to, try to get eggs at a reasonable cost. So they are asking for some donations to put towards an auction there. All those funds help raise money for those things you get in high school to go to college. Scholarships, thank you. I knew it was an S word. Scholarships, we sponsor about 5 scholarships for Kiwanis.
I actually know a local grower in Sandy. I haven't talked to him to know what he's selling eggs for now. I haven't bought in a couple of years, but I'll find out, and whoever name I need to give them to,
Yeah.
maybe connect them.
Yep, I will send you the poster for it. It's with context. Actually, our poster that we have for the Sportsman Breakfast has Ken and Mike's name, Mike Pickett and Ken Harris's name and phone number on there for anybody who can donate. So yeah, that's I think that's all I have. So thank you.
Question for you. We used to have those Clackamas County
dinners. Yeah.
Do they still have them?
Great question.
And if they do, I think we should host one at at our new bike park sometime early summer.
We'll have to look into, so we don't get to pick our day. They send out a schedule, so we'll have to see what month was assigned to us.
And then trade.
And then trade. We can certainly look at doing that. Yeah, they were on hold for several years during COVID. I'm not sure what the status is of them now.
We did a few after, since COVID. released.
We done a few since.
Yeah,
then?
yeah.
Yeah, because we had the esticated
Yeah.
dinner last year, as I went.
Yeah, we did it.
We did one here, then we did one.
Some-
Yeah.
Is that 2023? Okay.
We'll check
Yeah,
back in.
we'll
Okay.
figure out what month was
But
assigned to
someone
us and.
Would trade with us, so that
We
we
need
can get
to,
out there
yeah.
in a reasonable and good weather and. I think it'd be good, it's a good opportunity to show something.
For sure.
Better than putting the sewer plant or something.
I think the last one we hosted, did we just have like 4 posters of wastewater? No, we did
were-
transit.
We
and
were
then-
Smoky Heart.
Smoky Hearth was-
That's right, that's right. And the one before that was always water focused.
Okay, anybody else for the good, the order? Adjourned at 8:50.